Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very hodgepodge, somewhat unprepared live stream. Appreciate everyone joining us over on YouTube. Happy opening day. I'm Josh Nelson from Sox Machine, getting some information from Milwaukee from our beat reporter James Fegan. So I figured that we can go ahead and just have a quick live stream to provide the latest information that we have for today's opening day game between the Chicago White Sox and the Milwaukee Brewers. And this live stream by Sox Machine is presented by Aiken Law, injury law made personal. If you need help in the state of Illinois, call 312-600-000 or 312-6-million. Again, Aiken Law, injury made personal. Chicago White Sox start the 2026 season in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the lineup for today for the Chicago White Sox, with the first pitch being at 1:10 p.m. Central Time, it'll be Chase Meidroth at second base, followed up by Colson Montgomery at short. Batting third and playing third base will be Miguel Vargas. DHing and batting cleanup will be Andrew Benintendi. And playing left field will be Austin Hayes, batting fifth. Making his Major League Baseball debut, batting sixth and playing at first base will be Munetaka Murakami. And batting seventh, and his first game with the White Sox, playing in right field, the ninth consecutive opening day that the Chicago White Sox have had a different right fielder. This year, it's Everson Pereira. Batting eighth and catching for the White Sox will be Edgar Caro, and playing in center field and batting ninth will be Luis Angel Acuna. Again, as far as some notes, Munetaka Murakami making his MLB debut. This is going to be a big deal. We'll see what the numbers are from Japan for the Chicago White Sox, as their games will be broadcasted overseas in that country, and see if Munetaka makes an immediate impact for the Chicago White Sox. Chase Meidroth last year batting leadoff. Not great numbers. He batted .232 with a .305 on base percentage and slugging just .285. Hopefully those numbers pick up for him batting leadoff for the White Sox. Colson Montgomery last year hit right-handed pitching very well, as he hit .242 with a .320 on base percentage, but slugged .567. That's a huge number, a huge slugging percentage against right-handed pitching last year for Colson Montgomery. Hopefully that trend continues. And when it comes to Milwaukee Brewers starter Jacob Misiorowski, only Austin Hayes has faced Jacob Misiorowski in his career. So that will be something to also watch for today, is how the White Sox fare against a very talented right-handed pitcher. And when it comes to Shane Smith, who will be making the start for the Chicago White Sox on this opening day, the Milwaukee Brewers have faced Smith before. What they currently have as far as on their roster went 4-for-11. William Contreras had 2 base hits and also walked, so he reached all 3 times facing William Contreras has against Shane Smith in his career. Sal Frelick has a double in his career. Joey Ortiz also has a single against Shane Smith. So it'll be interesting to see how Smith fares against his former ball club a second time in his career, this time on opening day. Over for the Milwaukee Brewers, some very significant news. And for those that play fantasy baseball, you know just how important Jackson Chourio can be, especially to this Milwaukee Brewers team. And reported by multiple Milwaukee beat reporters, Adam McKelvey and Kurt Hogg. McKelvey tweeted, "Huge news from the Brewers. Jackson Chourio placed in the 10-day IL with a fractured left hand." And then Kurt Hogg also added that the hand fracture dates back to a game in the World Baseball Classic, an exhibition game to warm up for the World Baseball Classic on March 4th, when Chourio was hit by a pitch. He's been dealing with a hairline fracture, and the estimate for his return is 2 to 4 weeks. So instead of playing in left field, it will be Jake Bauers for the Milwaukee Brewers in left field, as they'll have Bryce Terrain lead off for them, playing second base. William Contreras batting second at catching. Christian Yelich DHing. Old friend Andrew Vaughn batting cleanup and playing first base. Mentioned Bauers already. Sal Frelick will be playing in right field. And then Hamilton at third base, Cal Mitchell at center field, and Joey Ortiz at shortstop, and Jacob Misiorowski pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers today. Again, very talented. We'll see just how deep he goes in this opening day start against the Chicago White Sox. The notes that we do have for the White Sox, and our James Fegan is currently in Milwaukee reporting as far as in this game. So something to monitor while watching the opening game is that the reason why Colson Montgomery and Munetaka Murakami are separated in the lineup is a strategy choice by Will Venable, the Chicago White Sox manager, not wanting to have a difficult left-handed reliever getting a chance to face both in the same inning. He wanted to separate as far as those two. And same thing with like Andrew Benintendi. So that's why it's a very right, left type of lineup. But to have some gap between Montgomery and Murakami so they're not facing the same tough left-handed reliever. So if later in this game, the 6th or 7th inning, if Colson Montgomery is leading off that inning, hopefully Murakami bats in that inning, but more than likely, if he does bat in that inning, the White Sox have already scored some runs, and Murakami may face a different pitcher. Andrew Benintendi in those situations does sound like if that tough left-handed reliever is still in the game, that Will Venable is okay pinch hitting for Benintendi later in the game, but not comfortable pinch hitting for Montgomery or Murakami. So if it's a tough lefty that Milwaukee is sending out, Colson Montgomery and Murakami is going to face that tough lefty. If it's Andrew Benintendi, expect a pinch hit opportunity by Will Venable in today's game against the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm curious on how this outfield goes. We've been talking about it for quite some time from the offseason, and now here we are in the first game of the year. This will stump us in the upcoming Sporkle quizzes that we have on Sox Machine. I don't know if we're going to remember that center field was Luis Angel Acuna, right field was Everson Pereira, and left field was Austin Hayes on opening day. We're going to see, I imagine we're going to see a lot of faces that are going to be playing these positions in the outfield for the White Sox all season long. They're also carrying Tristan Peters as well. We'll see if he gets any game action. Derek Hill is also on the bench for the White Sox. So they're carrying 6 guys who could play in the outfield for the Chicago White Sox. And Acuna, with carrying 6 outfielders, that means that Acuna, who does have experience playing second base, can help out in the infield. Because right now the White Sox technically are only carrying 5 infielders. Vargas at third, Montgomery at short, Maidrat at second, and Murakami at first. The other infielder is the guy who led the White Sox in home runs last year. Lenin Sosa is leading will be the bench infielder for the Chicago White Sox. So that's the outfield situation and the position player side for the White Sox, and we'll see how Shane Smith fares. Last year, he was their number 5 starter to start the season, and now he gets a chance to start on opening day. Other than the big news from the Milwaukee Brewers, again, Jackson Chourio, if you just jumped on the live stream, will not be available in today's game against the Chicago White Sox. That's a big break for the White Sox. Chourio is going to now miss the first 2 to 4 weeks of the season. This was announced earlier this morning on opening day. So I'm not sure if the Brewers are just waiting to see if Chourio, for some reason, could be able to get through or play through the hairline fracture, but they're now going to give him at least a couple weeks off in order to fully heal before rejoining the team. Very similar to the White Sox not having Kyle Teal available, as Teal's on the 10-day injured list. Brooks Baldwin is also on the 10-day injured list. And the latest update from Chris Getz yesterday when meeting with the press doesn't exactly sound encouraging for Brooks Baldwin to join the White Sox team anytime soon, but that is a situation that we are monitoring as Brooks Baldwin is dealing with a right elbow sprain. On the 15-day injured list, you have the pitchers that are recovering from Tommy John surgery, like Drew Thorpe, and right now Mike Vasil is on the 15-day injured list, as he is going to be missing all of the 2026 season because of a Tommy John surgery is needed to repair his elbow. Eventually, I imagine when the White Sox need to add somebody onto the 40-man roster, that Mike Vasil could be transferred over to the 60-day injured list. And then being DFA'd, Curtis Mead and Corey Lee. We talked a lot about Corey Lee and his situation after the White Sox signed Reese McGuire in a previous episode of the Sox Machine podcast, pondering about that decision. We'll see on how that decision unfolds, but it'll be a couple days of waiver wire limbo for Curtis Mead and Corey Lee before they have their fates decided if they're going to elect free agency. They could report to Charlotte and still be part of the White Sox organization and play some games with the Charlotte Knights. Not sure if that will come to fruition, but other MLB transaction news, the New York Mets signed old friend Tommy Pham to a minor league contract. And now I'm joined by the managing editor of SoxMachine.com. It's Jim Margulis. And Jim, happy opening day.
Happy opening day. Just got done sending out the newsletter. Got a couple posts up. We got pregame notes coming. We have recaps coming. We have a lot of stuff going on. Good to be back.
It is good to be back. So I think the big news for today comes from the Milwaukee Brewers side. And I mentioned it a couple of times, but Jackson Chourio now, Jim, is dealing with a hand fracture that he's going to miss the first 2 to 4 weeks of the season. So I guess that's a little bit of good luck for the White Sox to start 2026, is that they do not have to face the Milwaukee Brewers' most feared hitter, at least in this opening series, in Jackson Chourio.
Yeah, I mean, having seen Chourio up close in Nashville when he was in AAA for the Brewers, I like watching him play. The bat speed that he can generate from a fairly small frame. I mean, every Brewer is small, basically. They're all undersized, but the way he can just send the bat ripping through the zone is a sight to behold. So don't really enjoy seeing him miss the series. I'm still in the mindset following the White Sox where I want to watch good baseball at some point, whether the White Sox are providing it or whether the other team is, giving it to the White Sox. It's been more of the latter in that regard, but as somebody who enjoys watching baseball played well and want to have examples of what you can point to for what it looks like when you have a high functioning MLB franchise, that's a little bit unfortunate, even if it does make the task at hand easier for Shane Smith and Sean Burke and everybody else.
So looking at the lineup, our James Fegan, I relayed that report, Jim. The reason why Montgomery and Murakami have a gap in the lineup is that Will Venable doesn't want them to both face the same tough left-handed reliever coming out of the bullpen in today's game. But if it's Andrew Benintendi that splits the two, batting cleanup, Benintendi could possibly be pinch hit later in the game if the situation arises where it makes sense that Venable goes to maybe Derek Hill or even Lenine Sosa in that situation to face a tough left-handed reliever late in the game. You good with this, having Montgomery bat second and Murakami bat sixth?
Yeah, I mean, for a couple of reasons. One is that the book, the literal the book baseball analytics staple, says that your best hitter should either be batting second or fourth, just whether it's the on base component or the power component. In the case of hitting second or fourth, you're most likely to come up with somebody on base. And if the inning is going well, and if not, it's still early enough to get the most at bats in a game to get the most chances to make an impact. So in the case of Montgomery, if he's not the White Sox best hitter, he's the most dynamic hitter or most dangerous hitter, I guess, in terms of one swing altering the game. So it makes sense for him to be batting second. In the case of Murakami, just batting sixth, we just don't exactly know the contact issues yet. Whether the contact rate that he had in Japan that was worrisome and that sent his stock tumbling to where the White Sox could actually afford him, how much that's actually going to factor into his viability as a major leaguer. I expect him to strike out a lot. It's more a matter of, can he produce around the strikeouts? Can he draw walks? Is he striking out because of deep counts versus 3 swings and misses on 97 mile per hour fastballs? A lot to learn about him, especially, getting out of the desert, getting out of the World Baseball Classic altered schedule to where he wasn't getting regular reps in front of the standard spring environment. It's going to be very instructional to instructive to learn about Murakami over the first couple weeks, and then it's going to be instructive the next couple weeks as he adjusts or pitchers adjust to him based on how the war is going. But early on, yeah, I don't mind him batting in the bottom half of the lineup. And should he produce some power in the sixth spot, should you want to see more of him? I guess that's a good problem.
And he's got the vets in front of him with Austin Hayes and Andrew Benintendi. So if the White Sox do go 3 up, 3 down in the first inning, because Jacob Mezorowski is an excellent pitcher, you got a chance to see. Did you get a chance to see Mizorowski pitch for the Nashville Sounds?
I missed him there, so
Okay.
I don't think by the time I realized like who he was and such, like oh, didn't get a chance to go to the ballpark. The Knights weren't playing them there, so yeah, it's that's a regret. Hopefully, well, I mean, not hopefully, but should there be a rehab stint, I will make sure to atone for that mistake. But yeah, I missed him.
Because you have the holdovers and the younger guys, Mydroth, Montgomery, and Vargas batting in the first third. And with Murakami batting sixth, if they do go 3 up, 3 down, because it's Mizorowski, excellent starting pitcher, then it's Benintendi, Hayes, and Murakami. Like, this White Sox lineup feels longer than when we saw last year. I'm still uncertain what we're going to be seeing today in the bottom half of that lineup with Pereira. Caro had an excellent spring training, and then Acuna. But it really feels like if the White Sox are going to win on opening day, it's going to be those first 6 guys that have to really produce against some tough pitching coming from the Milwaukee Brewers, Jim.
Yeah, I'm looking at last year's opening day lineup, and you had Corey Lee at catcher, you had Jake Amaya at shortstop, and you had Michael A. Taylor in left field. And Taylor's fine as a fourth outfielder, but Mayo was not a major leaguer. Lee right now is not a major leaguer. I still, yeah, the physical tools are still stand out to me as a catcher to where like, man, he seems like he should get like a solid month in the majors to prove it or not, but it's not going to happen with the White Sox. But you definitely had like a bottom third that was either not there to produce offense or is not going to be around. And in this case, like you still have some short termers, especially like Hayes is only on a 1 year deal. But otherwise, the White Sox do have ambitions for most of these guys, whether it's being starters for the next few years or being like in the case of Mydroth, like I don't know if he has to be the everyday second baseman going forward because of all the shortstops they have coming through. They have Sam Antonacci who's coming up, so they could form a pretty effective platoon if things go well. But like he should be, he's a major leaguer. He can be part of a good team, of a good infield. So I think you're seeing more of that. Same thing with like Luis Angel Acuna. Maybe not an everyday center field candidate on a postseason team, but has the skills to be somebody who can play center field on an occasional basis. And based on the spring he had, based on the speed he has, we'll see how it translates to his first real full-time run in center. But he's somebody who, if it goes well, should be part of good teams in one form or another. So it does feel, if not longer in terms of like a lineup that's going to be like a top half of the majors in terms of production, at least there's a fair amount of staying power in this lineup. You hope it's as starters, as players who are too good to demote, whether it's to Charlotte or just to the bench as guys come up, but in some form they should be producing enough to be rosterable.
I am curious with the bottom third of the lineup. If Acuna does reach on base, you do have this situation with Acuna being a good base stealer and Mydroth batting leadoff. That's where I think we could see some action in this game, and one that I do hope that we do see some type of movement, because as Will Venable, the manager of the White Sox, told the press yesterday, that offensively they have to find multiple ways to score runs. It just can't be all home runs. And I wonder if that's going to be a key situation during today's game against the Brewers, Jim. What happens when Acuna gets on first? If he takes a walk or gets a single, does he get the automatic green light? Do we start seeing hit and runs to try to position and get base runners into scoring position for Montgomery and Vargas following them?
Based on his history in the minor leagues, it seems like they should be very aggressive with letting him run. I am curious, based on what we saw in the spring, with how many extra bases they tried to take. And in some cases they ran into outs, and it's perfectly fine using the spring to learn limitations and just practice being aggressive, like get in that mindset and then ratchet it down. I'm always reminded of the Don Cooper line. I'd rather tame a tiger than kick a jackass, which is a phrase I
It's a
use a
great
lot
line.
in life. But we should see the White Sox, based on what Venable said, what the talent that they have on hand, hopefully healthier in terms of legs, to where they should be going first to third, first to home, stealing bases more. Like last year when Robert got hurt, they basically stopped stealing bases. In the case of Acuna, like if you can't count on him getting on base 30% of the time, certainly looked good in spring training in terms of getting on base and scoring runs, but he hasn't yet proven that in the majors. It does seem like he should have the license to try to get around the bases as fast as possible when he does get on, and then should it be a few weeks in the season, he's like 3 for 7 stealing bases or something, then maybe you say, okay, we need to pick our spots a little bit better, or we need to learn how to scout other opponents better. I'm reminded of another aspect of like what the White Sox are trying to do in terms of learning moves, learning tips in terms of both pitch tipping, but also in terms of when they're going home versus when they're going to first. Like we heard about the White Sox not being great at reading it, but also not great at like reading themselves, and that was one of the reasons why Zach Bove was brought in, because he's the Royal staff has been pretty good defending their positions and holding the running game in check. And while part of that's quick pickoff moves and being quick to the plate, it's also not giving anything away. So as the White Sox really emphasize the finer points of playing Major League Baseball in lieu of having talent that makes it obvious, like, oh, they're going to hit 4 homers today and win 10-6. That's something to pay attention to when they get on base. How do they run the bases? How many outs do they run into? How many outs are excusable and like good gambles, even if they didn't go well, versus how many are just like, okay, you're getting reckless, need to tone it down.
So the offense in opening day, they have a tough task. They're going up against Jacob Mizorowski, but I do love the idea of hitting 4 home runs today for the White Sox on opening day. Who knows? Maybe somebody will have a Matt Davidson opening day, if you recall
Sure.
Davidson hitting 3 homers. So I just texted our beat reporter James Fegan. Again, he's at American Family Field in Milwaukee covering this game for us. I just texted him, Jim, does Shane Smith have a pitch count today? And James responded, not a specific one that was given, but you should expect a shorter start than the midseason. So with that being said, what would be a good goal or a good accomplishment by Shane Smith that you would feel happy about his opening day start?
I think you know my answer.
6 innings.
5 innings at this point. Just early on, 5 innings, 80 pitches would
Okay.
be fine. Like 6 innings would be good. I would consider 5 innings fine, especially if they're watchable, effective, keep the White Sox in the ball game. It's kind of like a platform start, I think you could call it. Maybe not 105 pitches right out of the gate, unless like he's throwing 8 innings. But this is still a build-up start. I think they weren't working 5 innings with regularity, so get to 5. Make Will Venable think about a sixth, maybe even start the sixth. But when you have a bullpen that's entirely fresh and you have an
Yeah.
off day, the coming day, like there's all the reason in the world to go to the bullpen earlier than you might think on this particular day. And then next time around against Miami, as you get into more of the season, more of the actual grind of 6 days in a row, 6 days out of 7, on and on and on, then you start getting a little bit greedier with starters.
Yeah, I'm with you. If Smith can go 5, we could see Leisure, Newcomb, Taylor, and Dominguez in this first game to try to get that early win for the Chicago White Sox. And I know that's 5 pitchers that we could see in today's game, but I'm thinking 75, 85 pitches for Shane Smith. And if he can get through 5 on that type of workload, I think that's very promising. Even though the Brewers do not have Jackson Churio today, it's still a formidable lineup that Shane Smith is going against. Let's see if he can get William Contreras out And that'll be the key thing too today, Jim. If the White Sox do have a lead, how much are we sweating? How nervous are we? Like that's what I'm kind of looking forward to with this I guess newly built bullpen that the White Sox focused this offseason, adding Dominguez and Newcomb along with Taylor and Leisure. That's what I'm looking forward to as far as the pitching side. Is there anything else that you are eager to see in the first game of the season?
On the pitching side? Or are we
Pitching
just talking about
side,
pitching?
offensive side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, pitching side, yeah, I think you laid it out to where ideally the high leverage guys come into play. You're not looking at Hidexin Paez making his major league debut this early, unless the White Sox are somehow blowing it open and they want to get a game, in the books for him. Just say he's made it and give him a baseball to take home. Yeah, I think you want to see the high leverage guys or even medium leverage guys figuring out a hierarchy. Venable didn't get that chance last year with the bullpen he had. He was solving an inning at a time and going from there. So I think anything resembling making Venable have to work, feeling like there are stakes, even if the White Sox aren't going to be contending for a postseason spot. Like everybody is 0-0 or 1-0 or 0-1 right now. The games do count. Everybody's trying to make a first impression and make everybody's lives easier. So I'm enjoying there being stakes to these games while they're around. So I think that's probably what I'm looking forward to. And, that applies to the offensive side too. Like so many months now that we've been following the White Sox in a row, it's dumb play happens or an error happens or a great play happens. And it's like, who cares really? Like in the scheme of things, like none of these games are memorable. They're all drops in a bucket that's kind of rank at this point. And you're just looking for like, moments that actually reflect progress. And, we saw that in the second half of last year, but, as I wrote this morning, like the White Sox get off at terrible Aprils and it feels like starting all over again. And so I'm looking forward to like an April where it's not a complete reset. It's not a factory reboot. And even if they go like, 4 games under 500, if they win 10 games in the month, or if they're within, you can count the games behind in one hand, for the first month. Like I would consider that progress, like, a professional effort out of the gate versus needing months to figure out, who's doing what they should be or waiting for prospects to get good enough to call them up. Like this is while there will be some evolution of this roster, particularly in the outfield, I think, as the season goes along.
Yeah.
It seems like there's enough on hand to be professional out of the gates. And that I think that's, when they've started the season, 3-22, and when they've been 6-21 and whatnot, just any kind of those records where you don't scan all the way to the bottom of the league standings to see where they are would be welcome.
Well, it should be a raucous crowd in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as they are expecting a sellout on opening day. Hopefully Shane Smith holds his own. I'm expecting a low-scoring game today between the Brewers and the Chicago White Sox, with both teams having their aces on the mound. And yeah, with April, I'm with you, Jim. Hopefully the White Sox do keep their head above water. It is a tough start to the season for the White Sox. They're in Milwaukee for these 3 games, and then they'll be in Miami. They come home to face the reigning American League champs, the Toronto Blue Jays, and then they got the Baltimore Orioles before they head to Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, where they haven't won a game in a couple of years. If the White Sox are hovering around 500 through that stretch to start the season, I'm ecstatic. I really am, because last year we could look at that and be like, they may get 3 wins out of this stretch.
Yeah.
But I feel like the pitching's better. I feel like they have more depth in the lineup. There's more avenues to score runs for this team. If they can hover around 500, then I feel like White Sox fans could be really giddy about how this season is starting.
Yeah, it's been a long time, or at least been a number of years, where you look at the schedule and if you can't figure out where the losses are coming from in the division or in the month, it's you. So it's if the White Sox are better, if they are more professional, you should look at a opening series that's Milwaukee, Miami, Baltimore, Kansas City, all these teams, Toronto, all these teams that are good, but not, Toronto is defending AL champs, but like Baltimore had a rough year last year.
Yeah.
Miami punched above its weight, but they're still not, world beaters yet. Kansas City is, they can be beat by teams who aren't the White Sox. So it's a case of, should they raise the bar of just the level of effort, or at least the competency of the effort they put forth, then eventually you should get to scanning a schedule and say, it's tough, but they can survive. They haven't been that way in a long time, but when Chris Getz is talking about progress, and he's talking about like just the improvement they want to make, like that's what improvement would look like, is not looking at the schedule and names and piece of paper and saying like, oh, they're already screwed. Like they should let they should prove enough on the field, hopefully, to where at this point next year, or even like a few months from now, you get to the mindset of well, that's why they play the games, because the White Sox, based on the improvements they did make and the efforts they're going to try to do to improve their one-run record, record in one-run games. If they're better, if they're improving, if they're sounder, they should be eking out more wins where they lost them before.
Well, hopefully it's a good day for White Sox fans. It's opening day. It's already a good day. I did get my blueberry donuts for those asking. Thank you. I'm ready to go. We hope that you're ready to go. Sox Machine will have the first pitch, so if you want to chat along with White Sox fans watching the game, you can join us over at SoxMachine.com in the first pitch post. Again, James Fegan is in Milwaukee, so we'll be getting post-game comments from Will Venable and White Sox players after today's game, and we'll be reporting all the activity that happens in Milwaukee, Wisconsin after this opening day. But alongside Jim Margulis, I am Josh Nelson of Sox Machine. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. We'll do this more often, like we used to on youtube.com/Sox Machine. But thank you guys so much for jumping in and watching us, and have a very happy opening day. And hopefully it is a happy opening day with the Chicago White Sox beating the Milwaukee Brewers. Thank you.